Right, so today we've got another DMG Gameboy. As you can see, it's in a bit of a state, this one. Not powering on at all. We put batteries in it. Like so. We get no power. No power whatsoever. Now, I think that the reason for this, if we have a look, is we've got corroded battery contacts on the back here. Well thick with copper oxide. I'm going to replace these bottom ones, but that one is soldered into the board, so I'm going to try and clean it up as well as I can, see if we can get power through to the board. If not, we're going to have to think about what components have gone wrong. Given that this is oxidised, likelihood is there's something inside that is also in bad condition. So here we go. So as always with these, tri-wing screwdriver, 6 tri-wing screws in the back here, batteries to one side. Just remove these tri-wing screws. Now, one of my favourite Game Boys to work on, the DMG. I just love how simplistic it is, how you know, it's so brutal architecture in its construction. Now, so there are two boards inside. One is the board for the screen, and the other is the board, the motherboard. It's got a CPU on and the cartridge slot. These are connected via a ribbon cable, so when you open it up, be careful. Disconnect the ribbon cable by pulling down on it. Let's have a look at this motherboard now. Get all the screws out there. There's always one, isn't there? Let's just stay in. So on this side of the board it doesn't look bad. I've seen much worse. A little bit of oxidisation there, but from what I can see, it's not many problems with this one. Let's see. Right, so the board's inside. They are connected with normal Phillips screws. They're only mini though, so I get a small Phillips screwdriver just to clip them out. There's 2 on the main board and 2 down here on the audio jack. Don't know if that's the case in all of them. I think that in most of the ones that I've worked on there's only been 1 screw on the audio jack, but I could be wrong. I have worked on quite a few DMGs though, so I'd hope I wouldn't be wrong. Right, let's have a look at the motherboard here. So, let's see. Right. Well, the pins on the cartridge slot look okay, and everything else, if you have a look at, let's just have a look at that switch there. Don't think that's going to pose a problem either. The capacitors look okay, and I can't smell anything that smells like fish oil, so probably sound. I mean, it does just look like this contact here has become really oxidized, and it's the same on the back as well as the front. The sandpaper should come up a treat. I'll just get some alcohol. Put a bit of alcohol in the cap there, and a bit of wet and dry sandpaper. And I'm just going to sand these contacts down. This could take a while, but I think this could be the only problem with it in terms of power. And if we can get all the copper oxide off, let's just see what grit I'm using there. That's probably not the best grit to be using straight off the bat. Let's look for a 2000 grit. And there we go. I mean, if you do have spare motherboards laying about, the much easier thing to do would just be to take it off of, you know, like a motherboard and then just unsolder it from another motherboard and attach it to this one. But unfortunately, I mean, well, I say unfortunately, these motherboards are pretty much bulletproof, so it's very rare. It's usually the screens that go on the DMGs. So here we go. See the copper coming through, so it's not going to have that silver effect, but the copper's conductive, so we should have, hopefully, when I put this back together and contacts made with the batteries, we should have power running through the system. If not, we can chase it down with the voltmeter and see where we're getting power to and what the problem is. Right, so I've done a bit more off camera there and cleaned it up nicely. As you can see, it's shiny again. Still looks grimy a little bit, but I mean, after copper oxide setting, it's never going to be perfect again. But I mean, it should, you know, it shouldn't get any worse as long as we don't spill any liquid on this again. Everything else on the board looks okay, as I said before. The capacitors are right, the CPU's okay. There's no issue I can see. Let's get on to those other tarnish contacts now. Good thing about these that you can you can take them out and replace them. But so what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace these two. I've got some new ones here. And then while I replace these two, the top one's okay, so I'll leave that in, but while I replace these two, I'll scrub the case down, make it look as nice as possible. The customer isn't wanting perfection, and they know that, you know, given the state of the case, we're not going to have, you know, we're not going to have the perfect looking Game Boy by the end of it, and they're not wanting to pay for a new case or anything. I'm going to replace the screen, but I haven't got the part yet, so where we're going to get to basically is fully working and needing a new screen, but I'm going to clean it down to make sure that it's in a presentable condition until we can get the replacement screen. So there we go, we're just going to remove the screen side as well, so we can so that we can take the case and we can clean it up nicely. So for some reason Nintendo wanted to use like 1 million screws to fasten the screen down. There's like, you know, only a few screws for the main board, but the screen is fastened down like it was going to run away or something. So I believe there's 10 screws actually that hold the screen down. So this is going to take a while just to come apart now. There could be other issues with it. I mean, you know, like this thing is completely untested, by the way. The customer got this in the shop, and I don't know. She probably didn't pay too much for it, but at the same time, you know, like she wasn't able to test it because you know, it wasn't working when you put batteries in it. Right, so here we go. I think we're on the last 2 screws now on the home stretch. It's a bit of an arduous journey, but yeah, what are you going to do? And there we have it. So I believe the DMG, the screen is stuck down, so we might have to lever it up. Let me just check to see if there's any other screws. I can't see anything. Okay, let's get something in underneath just to... Don't be too destructive with it, of course. Try to be as gentle as possible there. Right, so am I missing anything? I think due to years of grime as well, those buttons are stuck in nicely. Give them a bit of a clean, you know, like make sure the buttons will work properly. But there you have it. Oh, look at the dirt on that speaker. That is beautiful. Okay, so everything looks good. Carbon touchpads look okay, but we'll give them a clean because you know, on these old games consoles, if those are dirty, the connections aren't going to be made, and you're going to end up with buttons that don't work. Speaker looks okay, but until we test it, we won't know for sure. And the screen as well doesn't look too bad. There's no burn marks or anything else on it. But again, you know, like it could have lines, you know, missing. But that's repairable on these DMGs, not so much on the Game Boy Pockets. Or I have had very little success with the Game Boy Pockets, you know, being repairable. Okay, so we'll pop that to the side for a little bit and pop the buttons out. And oh yes, they're beautifully grimy. Look at that. Oh yeah, gotta love that, don't you? Nice bit of grime there. I could replace these pads because after a while they get worn. You can see the shiny on the bottom there, but you can just rough them up as well. And oh, that is very nice. Look at the pad for that. Oof, there you go. Nice bit of something growing in there. And the screen is already detached as I've been working on it. Right, so off to clean this up now. I'm not going to put loads of effort into cleaning this up because, as I say, it's you know, it's not in the best condition anyway. I'm just going to get the grime off both inside and outside, and and leave it at that. The customer wasn't too bothered about cosmetics, just more bothered about functionality, and that's fair if you're a gamer. You know, like you don't always care about how it looks. If you're a collector, then looks are important. So all we're going to do now is take off anything that can be taken off before it gets you know, thrown in the sink for the wash. Right, and there's some tabs just behind the battery slot, and you just push those tabs in like so, and then you can push the battery contacts out like that. And if you do this the same all round, you know, just push those battery contacts through. That one's having trouble. Yeah, it's a bit cold. You see all that just came off? It's copper oxide everywhere. I'll just show you these battery contacts because you know, for a fair picture of them, they really do need replacing. That spring's warped as well, so I wouldn't put them back in. I mean, it probably still work with those bottom ones like that. Definitely not going to work with that top one because yeah, corrosion all over where the battery makes contact. So be back in a minute after we clean this one up. So I've just given all the membranes a quick wash, and the buttons were pretty grimy as well. Nice and clean now. Same with the membranes. If you have a look, we just want to check to see if there's any breaks in them because that can cause the buttons to malfunction. But to be fair, you know, like, I don't think I've come across Game Boy membranes that have broke before, just because you don't tend to be as rough with the Game Boy as you are with, say, a SNES controller or something like that. And I've had plenty of SNES controllers that have broke, but here you are. They all seem to be working fine. There we go. Here's the case after it's been washed. It's looking good. I've managed to get all of the all of the copper oxide out of the battery section there. It's cleaned up quite nicely, you know, to say that it was in quite a bit of a state. As I say, I'm not going for perfection. You can still see that scratch on the front there. Buttonholes have all cleaned out nicely. I've made sure that all the gunk was gone there, especially around the D-pad where something seemed to be growing. Also cleaned out the vent for the speaker. You can see here I've sanded down the adhesive from where the lens was. Now if you leave that on, it can mean that the new lens will go on uneven and it'll just look really shoddy when you've finished putting it back together. So here I've cleaned up all the carbon pads, all the buttons. They were quite crusted with grime and dirt, and yeah, now it's time to reassemble the Game Boy. There we go. Just one last thing to do. Just going to pop the replacement lens on. Let's just check that screen first. Always worth giving the screen a quick wipe before popping the lens on. There we go. Just need to make sure it goes on straight. There we have it.